Welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about Netflix's new breakout show, Stranger Things, which premiered last month in about early mid-July and is taking off like crazy. I keep seeing it everywhere on social media and just people talking about it, and all for a good reason because it is pretty awesome. I myself binged through it in one day, actually on the last day of my honeymoon in Italy, so just to give you an idea about how addicting it is. It's a great sci-fi show. Really connects with E.T. and the Goonies and little aspects of Stephen King. It definitely has this kind of retro, kids going on an adventure feel to it. So if you're into that, you're going to absolutely love it. So let's backtrack a bit and recap as always. The show starts off with 4 young boys playing Dungeons & Dragons in young Mike Wheeler's basement. Mike Wheeler is quickly established as the leader of this group. He is played by Finn Wolfhard, who is a very talented actor. He's actually going to be appearing in 2017's It as Richie Tolzer, so I'm very excited for that. So we go to Mike's basement where his friends are playing, and after they wrap up their game, the 3 remaining boys return home on their bikes. We have Lucas, who's a little skeptical, not my favorite of the group. Dustin, who is my favorite. He is hilarious and just so adorable and very likable, and the silly comic relief aspect of this group. And then Will Byers, who's just really sweet and innocent, and unfortunately not in the show too much. So we follow Will to his deserted back alley house, of course, where he's home alone and chased by this vague, creepy monster that has powers. And in a few short scenes, Will disappears. So, poor Will, you only get about a few minutes of screen time other than flashbacks, but his disappearance sparks the premise of the entire show. The next morning, his mother Joyce, who's played by Winona Ryder, who we haven't seen in a while, wakes up to find her son missing. Her and her older firstborn son Jonathan freak out, can't find him, and she goes to the police department where the small town chief Hopper, who's played by David Harbour, who is just thinks she's being erratic and blows all the proportion, doesn't take it seriously until they realize, okay, he really is missing. When the boys find out that their friend's missing, they decide to launch their own investigation and try and find out where he is. So while this whole disappearance of Will's going on, we have a few side stories. We focus in on Mike's older sister Nancy, who is in high school and has a crush on this douchey high school guy and his friends who are dicks. We have Will's older brother Jonathan, who's socially awkward and kind of creepy and just kind of lurking around looking like just shady. I mean, he does come off kind of shady, but he's harmless, but definitely strange. And so, as everyone's looking for Will, Joyce, Winona Ryder's character, starts feeling like she could connect with her son, that she's hearing him around the house, that her house is somehow connected to him and that her son's alive, and she soon thinks she sees a monster coming out of the walls, and everyone thinks she's having this nervous breakdown because she is this erratic kind of, I mean, not crazy, but she just comes off very crazy, so no one is taking her seriously at all. Even her son Jonathan thinks his mom's finally losing it. So while he's out looking for his brother and posting up pictures, the group of young boys, Lucas, Dustin, and Mike, they're doing their own little investigation. Nancy sneaks out to go to the party, and her friend Barbara, voice of reason, saying, no, let's go home, we're not supposed to be here. But Nancy's so desperate to fit in and impress her new jock boyfriend that she leaves her friend and goes to screw around with the boy upstairs, and poor Barbara is taken in an instant by this demon creature that we get only a glimpse of. So that was really frustrating because Barbara was very likable and I liked her a lot, and I was really sad to see that she was just cut out at the second episode. Good job, Nancy, you left your friend to die. You know, chicks over dicks is what I thought it was, but I guess not. And the third episode actually opens up with Barbara's horrible death. In that scene, we actually get an idea of this netherworld this creature's from. It looks just like the real world, but it's dark and empty and gray, so it's almost like a parallel universe, and poor Barbara is killed while her friend's upstairs boning in the other reality. But with Barbara's disappearance, Nancy kind of gets pulled into the story because she starts looking for her friend. So she actually teams up with the awkward, social outcast Jonathan, and they're looking for Barbara and Jonathan's brother Will. And when Nancy's investigating, she thinks she sees this creature that Joyce, Winona Ryder's character, is raving about. So Jonathan and Nancy kind of attack more of the monster aspect of the story, where the younger boys do a different route. While out looking for Will, they happen to come across a young girl, hair buzzed short in a hospital gown. They don't know what's going on. She looks lost and terrified, and Mike takes her home and hides her in her basement and proceeds to keep her there for the whole week, and his parents are completely oblivious because they're terrible parents. But we learn that her name is 11. She actually has it tattooed on her inner wrist, and through a series of flashbacks we learn that she escaped from this government facility in the woods, and that she does have powers, psychic powers. She's able to move things, and we're not really sure the extent of her powers, but we do get that she has them, and that she was experimented on, and that this facility, they were using her as a weapon and as a spy because she's able to connect through telepathic waves and kind of listen in on conversations. So we don't really know her origin. We don't know if she was born this way or if she was born and they gave her these powers. There's not a lot of backstory to it, so I'm really hoping they touch on that later on in the future. But she escapes, and the boys know that she has some link to their missing friend, so all together they try to find Will. 11 is played by Millie Brown and done very well, even though she speaks so little, literally only a handful of sentences and one word, but her expressions are great. She has just this really cool Sigourney Weaver badass thing about her, even though she's such a young child. Your heart feels for her because her whole life she's been in a cell being poked and prodded and forced to kill cats or infiltrate Russian spies. So poor girl hasn't really had a life. So her and Mike definitely have this connection that his friend Lucas is completely jealous of. Lucas is actually my least favorite character of the group of boys. He's incredibly skeptical, really rude to her. I mean, I get that she has powers and she's a strange girl, but from right off the bat, he is just questioning her. He doesn't trust anything she says, anything she does say. He just starts ripping it apart, and it got to the point where towards the end of the season, where Lucas and 11 collide, and she used her powers to set him flying, and for a second I thought she killed him, but after that he was like, screw this bitch, I'm done with her. And the very, very last episode kind of comes around. So Lucas is not my favorite. Dustin, like I said earlier, he's hilarious. He's the comic relief. He is a sweetheart. He is all for 11. He thinks she's the coolest thing. He's really into, Lord of the Rings and all the Hobbit and sci-fi and Star Wars, and he thinks she's just this walking, just piece of art, cool powers. And he's 11, so what 11-year-old boy wouldn't like someone who has all these cool, telekinesis powers and everything. And then Mike himself is pretty cool. He does have a crush on 11. That's kind of obvious. He does care about her, and he wants to protect her. And he's really, really hell-bent on just protecting and saving his friends. There's actually one scene where these bullies are messing with Mike and Dustin, and they pull a knife on adorable, toothless little Dustin, and they want Mike to jump off a cliff to save Dustin's life. And without even knowing 11's around, Mike does it. He jumps off this cliff, but luckily 11 sees him and uses her powers to suspend him in the air and bring him back. So, he was literally willing to die for his friends. So, someone you want on your team. So, there's a few conspiracy stories. The town chief and Joyce, Winona Ryder's character, they do some sleuthing around trying to find Will. At one point, there is a body found in the lake, and they do a little digging up. It's a fake wax stuff-filled body, so they do know at that point that they're not crazy. There is something shady going on. The chief breaks into this facility that's in the forest, and he discovers there's all this crazy experimentations going on. This woman was ranting that her daughter was stolen and done experiments on. It's roughly hinted that her daughter is 11, but it's not confirmed. The police chief had lost his daughter to cancer earlier, so he has this sense of I need to save the children because he couldn't save his own daughter, and that's referenced a lot and kind of gives him a softer core because he comes off very hard and unlikable in the beginning. So he and Joyce do all the sleuthing, investigating, and in the end go through this portal to this dimension, dark, upside down world to find Will. And so while they're doing that, the boys are trying to keep 11 safe because the government, conspiracy, corporations are looking for her. They want their weapon back. As the show progressed, we see her powers get a little stronger. At first, we just see little ticks here and there, and by the last episode, she's flipping trucks and suspending Mike in the air. It's obvious that her little escapades drain her. Every time she uses her powers, her nose starts to bleed or her ears start to bleed. She can kill people. She does kill a few of the government henchmen as they're trying to escape. I was surprised that she killed her father figure in the last episode. He was the head of this research facility and kind of took this really demented, twisted father role for her growing up. And he seemed like the lead and the head honcho of this conspiracy. So I thought he was going to for sure be around a lot, longer, but they kill him off, well, the monster does. And in the last episode, this monster comes to kill the boys, and 11, little girl bravely steps up and disintegrates the monster and herself. Joyce and the chief go into this other world, and they find Will's body, and he's alive, barely, and he has this very alien-esque face hugger thing on his face, and they pull it out of his throat and carry him to safety. And everyone's reunited and happy, except for 11, who disintegrates. But I think she's alive because the police chief leaves waffles in the forest. That's significant because through the whole show, she's obsessed with Eggo waffles. So he leaves them in this little case, kind of hinting that someone in the forest is eating waffles, and who else would it be? Will is with his family. His sister ends up teaming up and getting back together with her douchey high school boyfriend, who gets a little more likable, which is surprising. You thought her and the social outcast Jonathan would have teamed up after this experience, but they just stay friends, even though you kind of feel like he is attracted to her. She goes back to the cool kid. And the series closed with Will Byers reunited with his family, with Winona Ryder, Joyce's character, and the older brother, social outcast. And he goes to the bathroom and he starts coughing, and he hacks up this alien slug, and he kind of spazzes out, and he's back in this netherworld dimension, and then he blinks and he's back home. So we don't know if it's just him recovering this kind of PTSD, or if he's still kind of trapped in there, or if he's transforming or changing. It's kind of left on that cliffhanger, but spitting up alien slugs is never a good sign. So I'm really curious to see where they go with this. They could continue on with this netherworld that they really didn't get to explore. There might be more creatures in there. We don't know the full extent of 11's powers or how she got her powers. Or I was actually even thinking they might be pulling an American Horror Story where Stranger Things, each season is just a different story about something strange and scientific and thriller. So maybe the second season will have nothing to do with the boys and the conspiracy, and just might be a whole other story of its own, having to do with something strange, phenomenon. But I don't think that's the case. I think the kids and the characters were wildly popular, and so much so that they will continue where they left off. There's some theories going around that 11 is the cop's daughter, but I don't think that's the case. You would know her by now. She died when she was 4 years old, or 5 years old. They buried her, so I think that theory is kind of ridiculous. There are theories that Will is turning into the new monsters, hacking up these slugs. That might be one. I don't know if he's going to be the same monster, maybe something different, but I'm really anxious. I'm sad that I blew through the season so quickly because now I have to wait. But very cool, very Goonies, E.T. aspect of it. At some points it was a little slow, but it was done beautifully. The cinematography, the music, very well cast. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen because they left a lot of open endings. So Stranger Things, it's on Netflix. It's great. Kids steal the show, obviously, hands down, they're the best part about it. And especially Millie Brown, the little girl, who, fun fact, they convinced her to shave her head after showing her a clip of Charlize Theron from Mad Max, and she thought it was pretty cool. So So Stranger Things gets a solid 8.5, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the future.